Hello and welcome to the Overly Animated Podcast, where we take animation seriously. I'm Beatriz Mourad, and today I'm joined by Michelle Anderer.
Hello.
And April Collins.
Hi there.
Today we will be discussing the 22nd episode of Fruits Basket, Because I Was Happy. Warning, spoilers for everything that has aired up to this point. Some of us have read the manga, some of us have seen the early 2000s version of the anime, but we won't be spoiling anything beyond episode 22. You can find out more about this podcast at overlyanimated.com. You can subscribe to us on iTunes at overlyanimated.com/iTunes, on Spotify, link is on our website, or on YouTube at youtube.com/overlyanimated. So, ladies, tell me why this is like the best episode of the entire season. Like, I will take footnotes, I'll take everything. Just tell me why it's so great. Michelle. Or April.
No, April go. Because she's in here last time. I was going to say, because Hanajima is the best.
She's the best!
And she is my girl, and my heart, broke for her this entire episode. I think the first time that I watched it, I was just kind of, crying and sniffling the entire time.
Yeah.
And I love her so much, and also she is super lucky to have Uo-chan and Toru, because they're the best friends anyone could ever want or have, and this was a very solid episode in my opinion.
And thank you, Michelle, for reminding me. You weren't here for the last podcast. What did you think of the previous episode?
What was the previous episode?
It was
the
girls go to her house and they get scared by her brother.
I liked getting to meet her brother. I listened to the rest of you guys talk about it, and I don't know, it didn't I had problems with the episode, and a lot of the things you guys talked about, kind of Saki taking on this mothership, this needing to protect Toru kind of role. I felt that I could relate to a lot. So if you're listening and you haven't listened to the previous podcast, go do it, because then you'll understand what I'm talking about, because I don't want to get into it too much. But I don't know, the episode that we got this week is what I was hoping we would have gotten last week.
Gotcha.
Almost. Maybe with a different title, because I think this would have been a much better introduction to Saki, because we got the 2 episodes with her, and so I think maybe I would have enjoyed last week's episode more after having watched this week's.
Right.
You know what I mean? Just because they're night and day. Last week's was intended to be extremely lighthearted and fun, and then this week's was very, very serious. So they're complete opposites, and I feel I would have appreciated last week's more after having watched this week's. Maybe I'll go back and watch last week's and see if I truly like it better or something along those lines. So
Gotcha. Michelle, what did you think about this episode?
I am legitimately shocked that Saki's wave power is real. And
what do you mean you're shocked? You didn't buy it?
I thought she was just really perceptive. I honestly didn't think she could make people sick and read their minds for real. I thought she was just really perceptive. In a world where people can be cursed with the Zodiac, I mean, it's not that far out of left field. But it really honestly did kind of take me by surprise. But I mean, oh man, I don't know. I enjoyed last week's episode. I think I said this on the podcast before, just because it's the most kind of normal, healthy response to say jealousy we've gotten, and just dealing with the trials of having have new friends, and them kind of getting other things out of those new friends, and essentially moving away from you a little bit, even though they still care about you. But I remember Beatriz really wanted to get into some more backstory. So we got that half of it this episode, and I think it's all really good stuff, and it really hits you where it hurts, as a lot of these episodes tend to do. But I mean, I really liked it. I'm still reeling from the fact that her parents are both so just on her side the entire time. They're even willing to move when they see how much she's getting bullied, which objectively, like, yeah, like a parent should do that, and that's totally normal and right. But like for this show, it's like, oh my god, like, can you believe it? They like
They're
her
good
so
parents.
much, they'll even move for her, yeah, which is just like crazy. And like Megumi is like such a good person, and he's such a good brother to her. And like when he talks to her later, like, why don't you tell our parents that like you're getting bullied? Like, do you think you deserve it? You don't deserve it, but if you don't believe that, I'm just gonna pray that somebody comes who can love you, so because you deserve that and you're a great sister. And it's just like, oh my god, like this boy, like him and Momiji are just like amazing top tier quality boys. I mean, please make more for the show. I want a whole band of them. But I mean, I think it was such a relief and so nice to have, like, already she had kind of a familial support network, which not really a lot of other people in the series do, even though she was being so bullied. And it's interesting that so many people have been bullied in the show. Like, it's such a reoccurring thing, but for very different reasons, I guess. But again, that's what makes it so believable that Toru and Ochan would reach out to Saki, because like they've been there, and they know she kind of sticks out, and that's why they try extra hard to bring them into their friend group. And it's just like, oh, it's just all good. It just makes so much sense based on like all the character interactions we've seen before. So I really enjoyed it a lot. This was a really strong episode for me.
I mean, for me, this as like a standalone, this is like the best episode for me. Like, yeah, the Uo-chan arc was incredible. And I think as like a two-parter, the Uo-chan one I think is the winner. But as a standalone, like one episode, like you can only get one. This is the one I would tell people. This is the one. For me, at least. Because she is the best character. She deserves the world. I love her. And, just these friends are the greatest friends, and this friendship. So before we get deeper into the episode, I did want to go back to kind of this, April, you kind of touched upon it, but I did want to talk about episode 21, because last week it was a very interesting discussion. It wasn't that we disliked the episode. There were just a lot of elements of the episode that kind of rubbed us the wrong way, especially just the focus on those three girls. And I was just curious, because this is Saki's two-parter. Like, we got Uo-chan's two-parter. So I was just curious, one, I mean, April, you already mentioned it, how if they had they aired this one first and then done the other one, would it be stronger had the order been reversed? Or another option is, had they done this like they did Uo-chan's, which is they weave the stories together and split it up separate, instead of splitting it up so separately, would that have worked better? I'm just curious what you guys think. Do you like the way they did it, in that they had these two separate things? Do you wish that it was in reverse? Do you wish they had interweaved the stories? Like, part of me wishes that maybe this episode had come first, but I don't know if I would say I wanted these two stories to have like woven in together, because this episode is so strong for me that I'm like, I don't want anyone to touch it.
Yeah, I agree that I don't, or I guess I agree. I wouldn't want them weaved together like they did Uo-chan's, because Uo-chan's made sense to weave together, like, because it was kind of like her past meeting up with her present kind of situation. Whereas this, they don't necessarily like weave together. Like for Saki, they don't weave together like Uo-chan's did. But I still do think that like this episode should have gone first, because then I think some of the issues, like, again, like we talked about, like how like Saki, or you guys did, and how like protective she is of her friend, and like how, you know, we touched base on like how much like Toru means to her. And I feel like this episode this week gives that context that we didn't have when we watched it. And so like, again, I think that if they were reversed, like last week's episode would have seemed stronger, just because then like we would understand like where Saki is coming from just a little bit more. I mean, you could maybe kind of like weave them just a little bit like at the tail ends to like sort of like bring it together. Like
Right.
they could have like they could have done something like at the end of last week's that like sort of went maybe just talking about like her, her being like, Toru means all this so much to me, X, Y, and Z. And then we get sort of like these, not, I guess, necessarily like flashbacks of like Toru and like Uo-chan from this episode, like, forcing the friendship on her or something like that. It kind of like what we did with Uo-chan, where we had like that very first like cold open was her coming home, like something along those lines to just bring it all together.
Gotcha.
And I think that's something else too, is that like I feel like they need to be connected just a little bit more, if not barely, because again, like there's such a stark difference between like this week's and last week's, and so it like you could have maybe almost like split these episodes apart and put them like 3 or 4 or even like 5 episodes away from each other, and they still would be like the same. Does that make sense? You know what I mean? Like, whereas like Uo-chan's, like they had to be together. Like, and also her story is a little bit longer because she was closer to, what's her
Kyoko.
face? Yeah, Kyoko. And so like, so it makes sense that like Uo-chan's like story was spread up between 2 episodes, whereas like Saki kind of knew like Kyoko, but like wasn't as close, and like Kyoko wasn't like as weaved into her life as she was for Uo-chan. So
Gotcha. Michelle, what about you? What do you think? Where do you land?
I actually think this order is pretty fine. Oh, I honestly don't have any strong opinions, though. I think for me, if we had, say, gotten this one before episode 21, I could see potentially one downside to that just being that if we know, like, the struggles specifically Saki had gone through, I feel like I'd have even less patience and maybe even more hostility towards the Yuki fan club.
Right.
Just
That's
by
fair.
knowing everything and being like, how dare you, like, bother this girl? Do you know what she had to put up with in her last school?
But isn't that a good thing to have more of that impact of like, oh, you are horrible? Because it makes everything that happens in that episode that much more heavy and impactful.
And I don't know. I feel like I prefer kind of getting it this way, because I feel like the nice thing about having episode 21 first is that we have like a vague sense of Saki and her powers, and that's kind of like we're kind of on the level, honestly, of the Yuki fan club at that point. Right. Like, oh, there's something about her, but we don't know what's in her house, and we don't know her family. So it's like we're entering it through their perspective, which I think is objectively kind of a fun thing to do. I wish that the girls were like more fleshed out, interesting characters, so it'd be like easier to identify with them in that moment. But that seems to be part of what that episode's trying to do for us as viewers. And like, I think that definitely would have gone away if this would have been first. So I don't mind having the backstory later, because like, again, too, like you can understand why Saki is so hurt by not having Toru as much in her life, just because we've seen how important Toru is to so many people. Right. So we don't need to know exactly like what their situation was when they were younger to feel like the full impact of that. So I feel like that's another reason that I don't necessarily think this one needed to come first. But I mean, you could flip them either way. I think it certainly wouldn't like ruin anything, like changing the order, but I'm kind of fine with it is right now. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. I if anything, it would be I'd make certain tweaks to 21, maybe to allude more to 22, like April mentioned, just to link them more. But that would just purely be to make 21 a little bit better, not to, because 22 is perfect. It is a perfect episode.
It's a really strong episode. Yeah.
So let's talk about it. So something that really stood out to me is the brutality of the bullying in this episode, because we see we've seen instances like, for instance, with Akito, we see how brutal he can be. We see with Kisa, it was the how emotionally traumatizing it would be to just be ignored by everybody. But this was like, this kid shoved like an iguana into Saki's like mouth practically.
I know.
And it was, I mean, for me, I was just like, my goodness, children are horrible. Maybe that's not the message, but also like, dang.
Yeah.
So is there, and it's interesting because kids do defend her in the beginning. In the beginning, you had those girls being like, leave her alone. They were saying like, what are you doing? But there was never, like, the words can only do so much, right? So I was just curious about your reaction to the bullying and what did that bring out in you? Because for me, it just made me very, one, obviously protective, but it made me really think like, okay, well, why didn't anyone speak up? Oh wait, someone did speak up, but nothing happened. Like, and then it all escalated into that moment that was so traumatizing for Saki. But I was just curious, what did you guys think about it?
I feel like it was a really accurate portrayal of being bullied as a kid. And like the extremes of it, while they're very shocking, aren't like extremely surprising either. And like, just like the way that it's laid out, you know, like, you know, someone, like, people did try and stick up for her. But I mean, at a certain point, like, as kids, you kind of learn. I think it's a terrible thing that people like eventually are just like, look, I'm sticking up for this person. But then in a way, it's like that like heroic part of them, or that like courageous part of them gets beaten down whenever nothing gets done, and then like it becomes like imprinted into your brain, like, okay, well, if I speak up, nothing's gonna happen, so what does it matter, kind of situation. And so I think like that very much, like, again, it's super terrible, but like I think that it's very well portrayed, like what being bullied as a kid looks like. And then like, you know, like not wanting to say anything, like all of that was just like very, very traumatic. I mean, hers was like a very extreme case. And then of course, like it escalates so quickly for her and like just snowballs out of control from there. And so I was just like, I want to say like mortified, but like at the same time, like this explains Saki and who she is and why she is the way she is and why she seems very like closed off and like almost sort of emotionless. And that's just from like being overwhelmed by everybody's thoughts, the bullying, and you know, so like it's just I don't know. Bullying's never okay.
But do you think they should have incorporated, because we did get that in the beginning, her hearing other people's voices. Do you think they should have incorporated that bit more in these scenes? Because they didn't. Like, basically we see this and then we hear her hearing other people's thoughts, and then that never comes back again. Should they have incorporated that more in the episode, like hearing like her, what other kids think of her, like whatever?
I don't think so, because I think what they gave us was like, I think it was good that they like let us know that was what was going on like inside of her head. Right. But I don't think we needed it any more than that. I think it would have been overwhelming. Because like you have to understand, like she's already being bullied, and then she's probably hearing what these kids are thinking as well on top of that. So like, and that's something that like I took into account while watching too, was I was like, oh my gosh, like not only is she just being like, it would have been one thing if they were just like thinking mean thoughts about her, but they weren't just thinking mean thoughts. They were acting upon those mean thoughts as well. And so I think that like, it wasn't necessary. It just would have been overwhelming to like hear what all of them were thinking all at the same time, while like having all those like sort of traumatic scenes like play out in front of you. So I'm okay with the fact that we didn't have like sort of touch base, and we like bring it up again later whenever it stops for her. Right. But I don't think it needed to be like a constant thing that we were witnessing.
Gotcha. Michelle, what about you? What did you think?
Oh man, I had a thought and then I forgot. Basically, I I think, like, I agree with April that this is, like, a very believable form of bullying. And it's, like, it's so subtle. I think, like, I didn't really, like, piece some of it together till the second time I watched it, but it's, like, so I think what happened is basically, like, Sasaki has this power. It's very overwhelming. Because of that, she is kind of quiet and subdued by nature around people because she can't, like, stop hearing their thoughts all the time. And that has a pretty huge effect on her. So these guys single her out and they say, like, you're always, like, quiet and look gloomy. You must be a witch. So, like, they know, one, she's, like, kind of on her own, and two, like, she seems different from the other kids. And so she's, like, an easier target, I guess. And I think that's part of, like, when the girls, like, notice she's being, like, bullied by these boys and, like, what are you doing? They probably don't know her because she keeps to herself. Yeah. So it's like they like don't know if it's their place. Like, how assertive should they be to this girl who's just really quiet and they don't know her? But then once the boy collapses, it's like that's really scary and nobody knows what to make of that. And immediately after that, Saki is so afraid of her powers that she's like, well, I need to be punished. And if the police won't punish me, I'm gonna other myself to, like, a much more obvious extreme. And that's when she starts wearing the black clothes. That exacerbates, like, her position with her peers even more. And then, like, everyone starts to see her as, like, this cursed witch lady. And I feel like that's, like, for her at that point, she's, like, accepting it because she feels like, well, if I'm punished this way, then, like, I will never, like, I deserve this, basically. Because, like, and I do say, like, credit to Saki. If these powers are real, she could have grown up to be, like, a murderer and just killed everyone and hated everyone. But she didn't. She was terrified of the fact that she hurt that boy. It scared her so much that she wanted to redeem herself by being, like, punished by her peers. I think that's such an interesting part of her personality, but it also proves that, like, her heart's really in the right place here. She doesn't hurt the girls when they try to burn her later. Yeah. Like, she's so desperate not to cause anyone else harm from these powers, and I feel like that's, like, a lot of her characterization that I really appreciate getting too. So, but, like, again, like, all the bullying stuff, so it's easy to see how it snowballed, like April was saying, because just, like, she was already kind of closed off and quiet, so it's not like she had a lot of friends to stick up for her. And then when she started wearing black clothes and accepting the punishments, they only got worse and worse for her. So like, I wonder, like, if she hadn't made friends with, like, Toru and Ochan, would she have eventually, like, hated everyone? I don't know. I mean, maybe not. Her heart's definitely in the right place. But again, like, I can't imagine that stuff wouldn't have gotten to her eventually because she's only human. So,
I mean, there's also, I mean, and going back to this trauma, I mean, you're right. It's like she just felt such immense fear and guilt over what she did. That was, like, the trauma. She almost killed this boy. Because the thing is, like, she did all, like, this was, like, yeah, he was bullying her, and then she doesn't realize the potential of her powers, and she just wishes him dead. And then this, like, I can't imagine how terrifying that must have been. And the idea that she's gonna punish herself for the rest of her life. Yeah. And the fact that just, like, Megumi's just like, what? No. Yeah. But no one ever tells, and something I kind of appreciate is that no one ever says, like, oh, but he deserved it. He was bullying you. You were just defending yourself. Like, there is, like, a very clear, like, that's never part of the conversation. Because I feel like you can get into a very slippery slope once you get into that. But, in which a lot of times, like, in, like, at least someone who's, like, read up a lot about, like, heroes and superheroes and whatever, having these superpowers and whatever, that's often the case. It's like, okay, well, like, but it's self-defense or blah, blah, blah. I like that they don't, I feel like that would have been a little cliche to have that conversation. It's like, it was just simply like, she's terrified because, oh, this is the magnitude of what I can do. And I almost killed someone. And just there's guilt, but I feel like there's a little bit of self-hatred. And when I saw, like, everything she was going through internally, I couldn't help but think that she's very similar to Kyo in a way. Because I feel like Kyo is someone who also is I feel like, I don't know, I feel like he might be we don't know his curse. We don't know what's going on with him.
Just that there is one.
Yeah.
If there is one. I mean, maybe the curse is just like, oh, his whiskers turn white or something. I don't know. But I just found that there was like this like because it's interesting. I always assumed, if there was going to be like kind of a parallel between Toru's friends and Toru's potential love interests, it was going to be like Yuki and Hanajima, and then obviously Uo-chan and Kyo would be like the parallel of like in terms of personality, but maybe in terms of darkness, like he is like the cursed one. He's the one who's like the outsider. He's the one who I'm assuming maybe there is a point where he feels like it's his fault. He feels like there's something wrong with him, and that's why like I could easily see her train of thought mimicking, like, or his train of thought mimicking hers, in that he sees, like, he feels like he's somehow to blame for being the outsider of the Zodiacs, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just found this like very interesting, like kind of link between the two that I didn't expect, given how she reacted to her trauma and how little we've seen of him reacting to his. Which I was curious. Do you agree with that? Like maybe like Uo-chan's more like Yuki, where it's like, I guess that's more of like what's expected and what's desired, where she wants like she wants like certain, like she wants, like she's like rebelling against like her situation. Similarly, Yuki's rebelling to his situation. So I don't know, what do you think about this kind of parallel thing with with Toru's friends? Or like, is this a possible like foreshadowing? I'm just like, I need answers, so I'm taking anything as foreshadowing. But or is this just me reading too much into it? Because that could also be very fair.
I think that like between Toru's friends and then the Soma Boys, there's definitely like small parallels between them. But it's kind of interesting because I feel like they're sort of like all like mixed match, if that kind of makes sense. Like Kyo definitely has like the attitude of like Uo-chan, and that's kind of how like he's like approaching like the trauma, but like his past is a little bit more like Saki's. And whereas like Yuki has like the past of like, Saki, but Yuki is a little bit more like Saki for sure, because he's had, from what we can tell, like he's had a very dramatic, a very like dramatic past as well. And then he sort of like approaches it, not with hostility, but like, I don't know, like, there's a word I want to use and I can't think of it. It's, like he's, it's, rebelling? Like he's maybe, well, no, he's not necessarily like rebelling, but he seems to be very like cordial, if that makes sense.
Distant? Like he's very, he sets limits to himself. He pushes people away, kind of.
Yeah. So like he treats everyone like an acquaintance. You know what I mean? Like, but never like, but again, like you said, like he keeps everyone at a distance. Or like at a distance, and so he's like the interesting one, because Kyo's like the perfect mix of the two of them, whereas like
I see that
Yuki's like, he's like Saki, but then he can be hostile towards like Kyo, and he has like a very hostile attitude towards like Akito. So it's really interesting, but there's definitely like similarities between them, so for sure.
Okay, all right, Michelle, before I get your opinion, random question because I'm gonna forget if I don't ask it right now. Who is more powerful? Like what like, I guess I don't know if we can call Saki's powers like a curse, but like what is more power, like what is like the magic of the Zodiacs or like Saki? Like what's stronger?
I mean, of them combined or like one-on-one, like
no,
seahorse versus
I mean the general, just like the curse. I don't mean that she has to go up against each of them. I just mean like the general, like the magic of the curse that has ruined this family. Or this, like, I'm just saying, like, what if, like, Saki's the one who, like, breaks the curse? Like, what if? Like, she could, maybe.
She just, like, uses her wave powers for good and just puts Akito in the hospital.
Like,
and it's like, anyone can marry anyone. You're free. Go.
Get out of here.
Get out of here, crazy kids.
Or, like, you know, I wouldn't mind. Like, I easily, like, my fanfic brain just went, like, what if, like, she just, like, shows up, Akito makes eye contact with her and just nopes. He just goes, nope, you know what? I don't need, you know what? You can do whatever y'all want. I'm out. Yes. I'm not going up against her. Nope, I'm out.
I mean, like, I wouldn't take chances if I was Akito, because she'll take him out.
Yeah,
like, for sure.
She heard that kid when she was little. She has, like, probably full control of her powers now. She's, like, 16 or something. She could totally take Akito.
Yeah, you know, and he's, like, really weak. He's, like, very sickly.
Exactly!
You know?
He's really sick!
He stands literally no chance, guys.
Which is what, and that, which we know is Shigure's, like, plan. You know that that's the theory, that Shigure's been, like, slowly making him more and more sick. Or no, Hattori, sorry. Hattori.
Your theory.
That's my theory, but if Hattori's been slowly killing him, and then he's so weakened that Saki shows up, and he's just like, nope, I'm not doing this.
I would, like, be so impressed if Hattori was actually poisoning Akito, but I feel like that's just Nai's personality somehow, which is a shame, but yeah. He's probably too good of a person to, like, try to murder someone directly.
All right, idea, because Shigure is not a good person. So what if...
But he's all into the mind games and the test.
No, but what if he's like, you know, it's all like a mind game, right? He gains his trust, he gains Hattori's trust, and he, like, steals medicine from Hattori, because Hattori's like, oh, you can't use this mushroom because it's very deadly, but I can use it as a chemist to make, like, an antibiotic or something. And then he just, like, takes it, and then he's just slowly killing Akito, and then it's like, it's all coming to plan. He's met Saki, so he's like, I could use you.
Well, I mean, so, like, hang on. So he's secretly poisoning him, but then also has this, like, agreement over Toru with him, but then he's also gonna bring Saki in to straight up murder him with these two other plans going on?
No. She's, like, the backup plan.
Oh, Saki's the backup. She's the third backup.
like, he's gonna keep her, like, you know, he's like, he can't show all his cards, you know? He has to keep one hidden. And that she's his, like, ace. He's like, whatever happens, like, you'll be, like, my full house, like, I'll just go after him. And then, you know, and then Saki will be like, I cannot kill. And then he's just like, but he's evil. And then, you know, the typical, like, superhero thing. I just want a spin-off series of Saki just being, like, you know, kind of like, what is that anime of that kid? Like 100 something.
There's like, what?
There's 100? Like an anime. No, there's an anime that's like something 100 or something, where it's like a kid who can see, like, waves or whatever the heck, and then he's, like, super powerful, but he's super chill. And I'm like, I need to
that's
spin
Mob
off.
Psycho, but I haven't seen Mob Psycho, so I'm not sure.
Yes,
but
that's what it is. Mob Psycho.
Mob Psycho 100. Yeah,
yes, that's what.
Well, now I know what that kid's power is, which is cool. I've been meaning to watch that show.
Yeah. But, like, I'm like, give me the Saki version, you know?
I think, honestly, though, like, from what we've seen presented to us, especially this episode, I feel like Saki would never... She has too much self-respect to want blood on her hands, so I don't think she would ever want to murder even Akito.
Okay, well, what if, like, Akito, like, hurts
trying to kill Toru? Then
like,
maybe,
what if he hurts Toru, and then she's just, like, you know...
And we're all gonna kill him.
I'm just saying, I think she's our best bet. Up to this point, I think she's our best bet against Akito.
She's the most powerful, yeah. I mean, she's got, like, 2 powers. She can read minds and she can put people in the hospital. Like, that's, like, a combo. Everyone else can only turn into an animal, and that's it.
Yeah.
That's all I got going for them. How weak.
Okay, but Michelle, did you have anything to say about, like, kind of how Saki can be read as a parallel to any of the Sohmas?
I mean, I think she definitely has some similarities to some of them, but I think it's definitely not like a 1-for-1 equal thing.
Right.
And I don't know if that's just because, like, we have enough characters now that it makes sense that some of them would have slightly similar things going on in a
there's
story.
Too many. You're saying there's too many characters and they're all starting to bleed in together.
I think they all definitely have, like, specific personality traits, but, like, there are so many things that we can say about, like, oh, Momiji, that's also true of Toru, and Yuki, and Kyo, and, you know, and, like, Kagura. So I think it's not surprising that we would find connections, but I don't know. I don't know if there's anyone in particular that I feel like strong Saki connection to at this point, but I can see like sprinkles of her in other people and sprinkles of other people in her.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, but let's talk about the biggest difference between Saki and the Sohmas, which is that she has a lovely family.
Yeah.
She has the best parents. Her mom kind of reminds me of Toru a little bit.
Oh my god, her face is like the same. It was throwing me off for a second. I was like, wait, oh, the hair's wavy. It's not Toru.
Yeah. But a little bit reminds me of Toru. And, you know, they're like her dad also, like it's everybody in that family. Like her grandma, her brother, everyone's just wants her to be like the best and happy. They just want her to be happy. They want life to be easy for her. They do everything right. And I find it interesting because that is, I feel like what's wrong with the Sohmas is that the problem is their family dynamic, right? You have this kind of, there is no like nurturing home for them. That's why everyone's so messed up. Whereas with Saki, it's like, okay, she doesn't have that problem. And she even mentions it later on. She's like, that wasn't enough for me. Having a family wasn't enough for me. I also wanted to be accepted. And so it gets me thinking, is the abusive cycle that we see with the Sohmas, say if we take that element away, you know, they still have to face society. They still would have been, you know, they could have been this whole other thing where it could have been a completely different story, but very similar in that they could have still been outcasts. So it's kind of like, is this story of Saki telling us that even if the Sohmas were a perfect family, they'd still have this curse. The family issue isn't enough. Solving their family dynamic isn't enough. You have to, like, because then their curse, I guess, is still prevalent and society wouldn't accept them. Like, there's two things that we have to fight. It's their family dynamic and society. Or rather, I guess I don't think this is the show that would fight society because they kept it as a secret very well. So I guess it's like, even if we basically, but through this episode, the show is telling us we have to break the curse. Because even if Toru just magically solves their family issues, they're still not going to be accepted by society. Because here you have someone who does have a great family, but doesn't fit with society because of her powers, and society attacked her for it. Like, the kids bullied her for most of her life. She lived it through punishment, punishing herself because of whatever.
Okay. I'm gonna try to tackle that. So I feel like one of your questions is like, so the dysfunction of the Soma family itself going away isn't enough because people have to interact with other people. That's part of how capitalism works, I guess.
What does that have to do with capitalism? Honestly, this is human nature.
Saki's family loves her. If she could just like live on a farm in the middle of nowhere with her family, she'd probably be really happy. But like that's not.
But she
like,
doesn't
she has
want
to
that.
go
She
to
wants
school.
human connection.
Yeah, she wants human connection outside her family, and that's fair. So I feel like, but like then again, like maybe like the society of her class at large didn't accept her, but she still found pockets of people who would.
Right.
And I feel like that's equally going to be true for the Sohmas too. I think it's all about like, if you have even like one person who can just like see you as you are and accept you, you're going to be able to face the world in like a way that is manageable for you. So I feel like getting rid of I think you're right, Beatrice, that getting rid of the curse is like step one of maybe like a 3-point plan. But the second point, like, thing has to be like that they're able to connect with other people in society and feel supported enough to realize like their best version of themselves, maybe, or something. But that is like a separate thing that I guess is tangentially related to the working on their family dynamic first, because that's like actively hurting them and actively making it harder for them to live any kind of fulfilling life. Inside or outside the family. But once that's gone, it's not like gonna magically prepare them for the rest of the world. So it's gonna take some time. But again, like, we're seeing like Hatsuri, I feel like, is on the kid's side. I feel like Yuki and it has reached out to was it Kisa? So the little girl.
Yeah.
He's reaching out to Kisa, like Haru's, like, I feel like they're like Momiji is like been very supportive. Like, I feel like they're starting to bond with each other more, like, especially all the kids and teenagers. And that's like part of them figuring out how to be supportive inside the family. But then the next step's going to be like, you know, being with people like Toru or Ochan, like people who aren't in their family that can still be a part of their like quote unquote family support system. And it's all like we're seeing it like slowly happen anyway. And Akito's like still even there. So I feel like there's definitely hope for them. But like, it's not like, one thing done, everything's great. It'll probably take some time.
Right.
Yeah.
So, April, do you think, like, where do you fall on this? Do you think that we need, like, is breaking the curse endgame for this show? Or is solving the family issue endgame? Like, can the Sohmas be happy with this curse still present?
I mean, I feel like they could. You know what I mean? Like, I think a lot of, like, what I would hope the end game is that solving like family issues versus like curing the curse, because we're not entirely sure like what makes the curse tick. So it's hard to be like, all right, end game is getting rid of the curse, but we don't know exactly like how that like what goes into that. You know what I mean? And I feel like if that was going to be like what we were striving for, then we would be getting a little bit more of an indication of that, but we're just not. And so I think like the easiest thing is just because like they've all figured out how to make do with their curse. The real problem and issue lies within like the family structure. And so, you know, I think that that's going to be endgame is everyone coming to a place where they can find happiness. Despite, you know, Akito's best efforts to sort of like bring everyone down, which is essentially what he's done.
Yeah.
Like, because when you get down to like the core root of it, like Akito's the problem, like the problem. And I mean, that's not to say that like there aren't other problems, you know, such as like Momiji's mom, you know, her like rejecting her child and like so on and so forth. But like, the core of the abuse sort of seems to stem from there. It like is from Akito and how the rest of the family has treated them. And it's just really strange too, because like, the family's really large. And so you would think that, in such a large family, like you would be able to find the support, the comfort, the love, the whatever that you need. But clearly that's not the case. So
it's not because they don't like the hashtag outside Soma family doesn't even know about the curse, right? So it's like, how do you be friends with them if you're desperately afraid they're going to find out the secret and have their memory wiped? Yeah.
Like it's just really hard. Like it creates like such a hard situation for all of them. So like, you're a member of like the Zodiac, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't form like the relationships that you need to be happy and to survive. And I think that's like the biggest thing that Toru's giving them is she's like, hey, look, like I am not a member of the Zodiac, but look at like the love that I can give you, like the support that you need and the friendship that you crave. So And like, look, it's not just me. Like, I have these other two humans who, I say humans, these other two people who, you know, also want to be your friend. And also, you know what I mean? Like, and it's sort of like them being able to see past whatever crazy image that Akito or whoever in their family, like, instilled into their mind. So I think really, like, Endgame should be, like, them all moving out of the Soma, like, estate and, I don't know, just going to school, getting jobs.
Living life.
Living life.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I think for me, I guess this discussion just stemmed from my worry that it'll be reversed. That they'll break the curse, and that's what's going to magically cure all their family problems. Because you can make the argument like, oh, everything stems from the curse. The curse is what started this whole family structure, or whatever, and that is the cause of everything. When it's like, no, most of the causes are from the abuse Akito has enforced on everybody. It's like, that is what we need to tackle, is the abusive nature of relationships and power dynamics, not necessarily a magical curse. Because it's like, look, if you can turn into a bunny, it's like, that's not the worst thing in the world. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's like I wish I could turn into a freaking tiger. That is so cool. So,
right?
you know, so that's why I was like, you know, that's just my worry. Like, because if, for instance, if they deal with the family stuff first and then they break the curse, then it's like, okay, that's the ideal. That's ideal. And, you know, it's understandable why this episode for me proves that they need to, at the end, eventually they do have to somehow break the curse, because it's like, this episode shows like society isn't going for supernatural sometimes, isn't okay with supernatural. So it just shows like, you either have to accept it, you know, like Saki does, and you find Toru and whatever. But like, you know, if it is a curse that you need to break, that doesn't replace rather the abuse and the issues. I think so. I guess that's where for me, that's where the worry comes from. It's like, I hope that the cause of all this, the curse is tied to how people are acting, but it's like, your situation isn't an excuse for your horrible actions. In a way, at least for me.
Yeah.
No, I agree.
But let's talk about like kind of the latter half of this episode, because I have emotions and I have to sort through them with you. So, all right. So Megumi's prayers are answered. You know, he's like, please, there must be someone in this world who could accept Saki. And
what
it's
a
like,
good boy. Oh my God.
Good boy.
Aww.
And the prayers are answered. You know, we have that, you know, after Saki's family moves, because they find out about the bullying is through the match incident. And this really shows just how pure Saki is, how much of a kind soul she is, because she doesn't care that these girls are burning her.
She's like,
just
them.
Focus. Exactly. She's like, you have no idea what you're messing with. You don't know any better. Let me focus on the pain, and hopefully, and like, once they all run off, she's thinking, thank goodness no one got hurt. Which, like, you got hurt, girl. You got hurt. But her parents, you know, they find out about the bullying, and they have this lovely scene where they're just like, you know, they're like, you are not a burden to us. And her dad asks her to keep going, which makes me think, like, are they worried that she's, like, suicidal or something? Like,
I think they just know her spirits are really low, and she doesn't have any friends, and they're her family, but they can't be with her, like, outside of the house, really.
Right. Yeah.
So they need, her will needs to be, like, stronger to face challenges, or, like, there's only so much they can do as parents, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I guess, like, to, like, the not give up, I guess, is, like, don't give up on finding, like, your peace. I guess he's saying, like, you will make friends. You will control your powers. Don't worry. Like, but again, like, her parents are doing everything they can. And then Megumi's prayers are answered because she moves and she meets Toru and Uo-chan. And Toru is just precious. Every time we see, like, young Toru, it's like the most precious
young Toru.
thing.
She's so, like, a little weird, and I just love that about her. It's like, yes, Toru's not perfect. Like, she isn't, like, the most popular person in school.
They're, like, getting mad at her because she's, like, having a conversation with
They're like, we're
like,
hungry.
in lunch.
Yeah.
Like, girl, not right now. Later.
So good.
Oh, I feel like everyone just is like aware that Toru is just sometimes can just get lost in the moment, and everyone's just like, "Oh, Toru."
Yes.
I just want her entire class to be just very protective of her, just being like, everyone just loves Toru. They're like Toru Protection Squad 2K19, like they just love her. But we have this like wonderful kind of introduction to her, to Uo-chan. You know, they immediately gravitate towards Hanajima, and they befriend her very quickly, and that's all wonderful. But then people eventually do find out about Hanajima's past, and she of course tries to distance herself from her new friends, and we get this scene. And this is what I wanted. I mean, I didn't get sobs, I didn't get wails, but like this is what I wanted tears. I wanted a good cry. And I got 2 people crying. 2. Count them. 1 and 2. And it was so great, you know, like, Hanajima was just like, get away from me, and then Toru's just like, never, but you're so close to us, like, we love you, I love you, she's like, I love you, and I'm just like, this is kind of gay, a little bit, the way it's framed, I was just like, I ship them, like, I don't, look, Yuki, you're a prince, you're alright. You know,
you're all right.
You're cool, I guess. You know, you're a cat. But this is my ship now. Like, I don't care. This is who I'm rooting for Endgame, and it's never gonna happen. I know that, but like, the beauty, what could have been the greatest like show, what could have been the greatest thing, and just these 3 friends, and then like you have like Uo-chan being like the supportive like kiss now, and it's like I want it so much. And anyway, I just this scene was everything. It was everything I wanted. It gave me tears, it gave me pain, it gave me angst, and it gave me gay. I mean, what more could I have wanted? But just walk me through what you were feeling through this kind of final scene of like of Toru and Hanajima, and just this whole kind of from Hanajima finding out about the girls. Like, do you think that she actually did something to the girls, or was it just like was the girl's pain just random?
Burned somebody? Oh no, it was not random. She totally slipped up. She was frustrated about having to be remembered about that event, because it'd been like half a year, and she let her guard down, and she hurt that girl, and she was like, oh damn it. And then I think the reason she ran is because like Ochan and Toru didn't know this about her past. She was keeping it a secret for a reason, and she was afraid that once they figured it out that they would reject her. So I feel like her running away was very much her being like, well, if you're not gonna like me now anyway, like we might as well not do this anymore. And like it makes sense why that was her initial reaction. But yeah, I think she did give that girl like a headache or whatever. But it's just because she wasn't paying attention to her own feelings in the moment.
Yeah, she did kind of lose. She kind of just freaked out, and that made her lose control.
I'm sure it like took her extremely off guard to hear about it. You know what I mean?
Like those girls just nonchalantly come in. She's braiding Toru's hair. They're like, "Oh, hey, did you like almost kill a boy at your last school?
Man.
Everyone's saying you were a delinquent and you smoked and you burned some girl's hand. Like, why would you ask that in a class you?" Like her and her friends, like that.
Well, at least they were upfront about it. They like went to the source. They were like, you know what? We're not gonna make these rumors even crazier. We're just gonna go straight to her and ask.
That's true.
I guess.
Like, asking someone that though, and not like expecting them to get really upset, even if it wasn't true.
I mean, yeah, you wouldn't ask someone like, "Hey, did you kill someone? Like, did you kill a boy?" Like, you won't. That's not the greatest way, but like, also, I appreciate the gall they had to ask, because weaker girls would just like mock.
I don't know.
I'd like maybe like send a text message like, "Hey, I just heard this rumor. Is it
don't ask
like?"
Please, that's so awful. Oh.
Or just don't ask. Like, that's none of your business.
Like,
you know
what does somebody say to that when it's a person they like don't even know? When it's just some kid from their class? Like, well, if I confirm this, it's bad if I don't confirm it. They might not believe me because they don't know who I am. Like, what am I supposed to say?
If I had a classmate who's rumored to have killed someone, I wouldn't have asked them because I'm like, I don't want you to kill me. But I would think about it. I can't just be like, okay, it's none of my business. I'm just gonna forget this happened. You know, it's like, I understand them wanting answers is what I'm saying.
I mean, I understand that too, but also like, we
know better. But like,
right? Okay, but the other thing too is like, I don't even think that like if I was that age, I would have asked. I would have just been like, oh, that's a crazy rumor, and then like been done with it. But I was also not into like the whole like gossip kind of stuff. So
that's one thing this show's good at too, because like it's done this a couple times, like using rumors as a way that just so easily destroys like someone's reputation, like social reputation at school. It only takes one rumor of something that's like not even true to just have everyone look at you a different way and start to ostracize you, and then you're just like helpless to stop it. It's so scary, but like it's so legit too.
And I think that's what's so valuable, and like I like how this is like how the episode ends, because if you compare it to how it started with these girls, like, you know, you had these girls defending her from bullies, right? But then everyone just bought into what happened. Everyone just bought into it. Like, they stopped and even if, say for instance, she was friends with them, even if she wasn't, like, let's just say she was, at that after that happened, no one was friends with her. Whereas with this, here it is about to start again. And she's fearing for, okay, once I'm going to be alone again. And then Toru and Uo-chan are like, nope. We're going to be with you. We're still going to be friends with you. And we're still going to hang out with you. And I guess that's like what makes the difference.
That's what makes the whole difference. And again, like, it's easy to see why they stuck up for her, because they sniffed out that she was kind of not, you know, fitting in anyway, and they've both also been bullied before, and they know how that feels, and they know not to just like believe rumors, that's like, it can destroy your life, and it's very damaging. And then, like, as far as I know, this girl's been great, and she's gone over to see Kyoko Bunch. It's like, they're not gonna let that ruin their relationship with her, but I think it also maybe took some of their personal experience to kind of get on her level there too, whereas like a rando from the class maybe wouldn't have been able to do that.
But they were also like extremely respectful of her too. You know what I mean? Like, rather than like, you know, seeing like, oh, she ran away, and then like hard pressing her about it, they, you know, they let her, like, I guess almost like have that moment where like, hey, like, they didn't outright say it, but you could very much get the feeling that, like, if this is something you want to talk about, we're here and you can talk to us about it. But, like, if you don't want to talk about it, we're not going to ask about it. And so I think, like, I think that's the other thing, too, is where, like, those random girls just, like, went in and just, like, charged right into her business. But, like, Toru and Uo-chan were very, very respectful and were like, hey, like, we're here for you, so it doesn't matter. So...
Yeah, and I mean, I will say also, like, I really like how Uo-chan was very clearly told her, don't, like, what do you want?
Exactly.
You know, she was like, don't assume that what you should be doing, whatever, what is it that you want? If you don't want to hang out with us anymore, fine.
Yeah.
But what do you want? Like, legit.
And I have no doubt that while, like, Uo-chan and Toru would have been very upset, they, again, would have been respectful of her wishes, like, and would have been like, you don't want to hang out with us anymore. Like, you don't have to hang out with us. We still want to hang out with you. Like, and that's like, that's something so different. And so, like, it's such an amazing feeling to have people who want to hang out with you no matter what. Like, that's incredible.
Yeah. And I don't know. I just really, like, because here's also, I think, and what makes all this all the more, like, heart-wrenching is that, you know, Hanajima just was prepared to live this life of punishment, like, and guilt for what she did and punishing herself. And it's like, you know, it's this question of it kind of ties back in a way to, like, Ritsu and, like, the desire to live. And, like, that's not a selfish thing to want to live. That's not a selfish thing. So similarly, it's like, this is not a selfish thing to want to be happy, to want to be to want to have people around. So it's like, oh, I don't deserve this. It's like, but what do you want though? Because that's not a bad thing to want, you know? So it was just a very, it was very well done in this scene of just all the elements that are being thrown at you. Her thinking what she should do, and then her finally admitting to to these two people who are openly are like, we want to hang out with you. Right, to
accept her, yeah.
And like have accepted her and still accept her even after finding out her about the darkest part of her, and still embracing her and still accepting her, like to also very clearly go, okay, like, look, we still accept you, but you still have to make the choice. Are you going to live a happy life, or are you going to keep punishing yourself? And she decides, you know what? I am going to be happy. And I guess that's the point of the title. Because I was happy, she decides to keep being happy. So, tying it all together.
Good job.
Tied it all back. But, yeah, so we got, at the end, we did get Kyoko-san. Because, of course, we have to get Kyoko-san at the end.
I was so happy. There's just something about, like, having this, like, 30-ish-year-old woman talking to this, like, younger generation of women. That's just, like, so affirming. And, like, it's nice if she talks to anyone, but it's just something about her, like, bestowing her wisdom to these teen girls that just, like, I always appreciate seeing. It's very good content.
Yeah. And the fact that it's, like, my favorite voice actress giving the wisdom, I mean, it makes it nice. Yeah. It's, like, it makes it even better. But there is something she does say that makes me a little worried, which is, she says that even if the three of them decide to go their separate ways, that some part of that relationship that they had, that bond that they share, is always going to stay with them. Which is, like, lovely. I love that because, you know, people drift apart, blah, blah, blah. I love that message. But they better not drift apart, is what I'm saying. They better not. Like, we saw it, and we saw it. I mean, maybe this, you could read it as, like, foreshadowing, possibly. But I feel like this is the most that this was to tie it back to episode 21. Right? Because that was the whole point of 21, was, like, the threat of, like, Toru no longer wanting to being a part of Saki's life. And it was the whole jealousy thing. And that, I guess that was, like, to tie those two episodes together. But also, I don't want them to part ways. Like, I want these friends to stay friends for the rest of their lives. Like, is that too much to ask?
I don't think it's too much to ask. Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's kind of... And, like, I don't know Japanese culture well enough to, like, be any kind of authority on this. But you're saying you were, like, getting serious, like, vibes from Saki and Toru. I mean, like, I was too, but I also didn't believe for a second they were going to end up together. And I feel like there's this thing about, like, girls being allowed to show a lot of, like, intimacy and love, frankly, with their peers. But then there's this expectation that sometimes, like, transfers to their potential romantic future husband later. So it's, like, all fine and acceptable when it's in high school and they're still figuring themselves out and growing up. But then, like, that best friendship transitions to, like, the person they marry, and that becomes their new, like, best friend for life. And that inherently means they drift away from all those, like, school people that were important to them when they were younger. And I don't think it has to be that way, but I do think that's, like, kind of a thing I've seen happen a lot.
Yeah.
And like, maybe that's part of the fear, right? It's like, well, if, like, Yuki or Kyo, like, hooks up with Toru, she's not going to have as much time for us, because that's just how these things go, and she can't have that many people be that important to her. But I would hope that she still could. Like, if anyone could make that work out, I feel like Toru could.
But I mean, for me, I mean, for me, it's not even, like, for me, it's more like, I just don't like how, in society, it's kind of like, okay, once you, like, get a boyfriend, get a significant other, suddenly you drop your friends. And that's something that it happens, that just people tend to, like, drop their friends, and then when they break up with the person, then they show up again. And it's like, no, if you want to be friends, like, it's one thing if it's like I understand, like, life, and, like, I don't know, for me, I guess I'm, like, more like, okay, like, if someone moves away, if they're working, like, whatever, they're opening a new chapter in life, like, that to me is fine. And, like, you know, and I'm not saying, like, oh, like, your whoever you marry can't be your best friend, blah blah blah. Like, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying, like, give your friends a call if you haven't called your friends in a while.
I'm sure Toru will. She's too good at being friends with everyone and checking in with everyone all the time to not do that. But it just, like, the frequency probably will drop, just like as new things happen in her life. That's hard. That's hard for anyone who's like friends with people when they're younger, and then it's just like not quite the same when you grow up and have to do different stuff now instead of being in grade school all the time together.
I guess for me, I just wish that like in media in general, not just like in this or whatever, and just in general, like worldwide, we start showing people like that you can be married or you can be in a relationship and still have your own life.
Yeah,
that's okay.
It's very important. It's very important.
You know, to have your own space, to have your own friends, so that whatever happens in your household or in whatever, you can still, like, you have a support system, and it's okay to have people in your life that maybe not necessarily interact, or if they do, they can interact, but they don't have to interact, and it's okay. And so I hope that the show, even though Kyoko-san is very wise, and I understand what she's saying, I also hope that, like, you know, we don't get to a point where we see, like, oh, like, Toru's, like, just only talks to them on the phone and never sees them because she's too busy going on dates with the cat or the mouse. Like, yeah. Anyway. Yeah. But what do you think, April?
No, I mean, I get it, but I think also, like, something, like, I totally agree. Like, I think it's important whenever you start to, like, when you're in a relationship with someone to also continue, like, you know, maintain your friendships and everything like that. Because you never know, like, when you're going to need them. But also like, I think the most important part is, like, I think that, like, it's sort of, like, part of, like, growing up, too. And I think that's kind of, like, the lesson that we're learning underneath it all, too, is that, like, this is just a natural thing that happens. And, you know, I'm very fortunate because, like, I have a very, very strong, like, friend group. Like, I have several strong friend groups. Like, I have a really strong friend group with, like, my work, with, like, people, my coworkers. Like, I have a really strong friend group within the podcast, like, and then, like, I have another, like, friend group outside of that too. And so, but, like, my husband doesn't necessarily, like, intermingle with all of these groups, like, so I think that's nice because, like just tonight, my husband was like, oh, what are we doing on Thursday? And I was like, well, I have plans with my friends, so I don't know what you're going to do with your life. But, like, that's literally what I texted him. So, but that's something that I guess, like, I also had to learn, too, because, like, in past relationships, I used to just be like, this is, like, you're the only person. I don't need anybody else. And then, like, whenever it ended, like, my life sort of fell apart. And so I think this is bringing, like, that small lesson, because it's such a big lesson, you know, to learn firsthand versus, like, just, you know what I mean? Like, learning it, like, you know, sort of in this type of setting.
It's, I totally agree. Like, and I think, like, it also took one of my past relationships to really understand, like, the same lesson, basically. Like, one person cannot be your everything. That does a disservice to you and them. Like, you need different people for different things, and one person can't give you all of what you need because everyone's different. And you just, like, you can't, like, for your own sanity and sense of selfhood, you can't just always be with one person.
Yeah.
In the same context. And, like, that's perfectly normal. But I do think, like, there is this weird idea, maybe just from, like, movies and stuff, that, like, when you find that person, like, you just hang out with them alone forever and you never hang out with anyone else again because they're just, like, the perfect person. But that's, like, really not true. You should always have, like, a friend support network outside of that, because, like, that is a part of your life, and it's an important part of your life, your partner, but that is not the only part of your life. And you still need to be able to have your own sense of your, like, independent life.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that covers it for this episode. I mean, I don't know, Michelle, do you have any, like, last thoughts? Because I think we covered it all. I think it's, like, a pretty good.
I am like wondering about the next episode because I feel like either I heard Hatori's voice or Shigure's voice, and either way, I'm very curious what could be going on.
Hattori.
I
just face palmed so hard because I don't
getting the deep sadness of Shigure's backstory.
No, I don't want it.
Last.
Okay, I will spit on it. I don't want it. I don't want it. I will throw it like a frisbee and he'll go and chase it and then bring it back to me and I'll still like not want it. I'll be like, go away. I don't want you. Like you're a mean, weird, creepy dog and I don't want you. You know, like I think it's very fitting, like also that his dog is no like specific breed. Like I'm like, yeah, like yeah. I'm just like you can't like, you know, like if his dog looked like, I don't know, like a golden retriever or something, I would be like, this doesn't fit. This is not right. Like he can't be a golden retriever. He can't be a like Lassie. I don't know what type of dog Lassie is, but you know, like one of those trusting dogs.
He can't be a trusting dog.
He can't be one of the a trusting dog. He just can't. I refuse. So anyway, April, do you have any like closing thoughts before we go?
No, not really. I think we like covered it all. We covered everything I wanted to talk about with this episode. So, and it was such a good one, even though like it was very heartbreaking at times.
Yeah. I will finish with just saying that my theory that everyone's in love with Toru still stands. And it's just solidified with this episode. Like, it's been solidified, but, like, this one's, like, really sells it. All right, but that does it for us. You can find out all the info on this podcast at overlyanimated.com. You can join us on Discord to text chat about animation at overlyanimated.com/Discord. You can support us via Patreon at patreon.com/overlyanimated. Thanks to all our current patrons, especially our patron of the podcast, Taylor, aka Needle. And thanks, as always, to our Patreon executive producers, Ryan, Steve, Alex, Beatrice, Hugh, Michael, and Needle. Thanks for listening, guys. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.